consideration of really utilizing it escaped my psyche. I got into place, my skin shrouded in goosebumps. Power emanated off him. He addressed me. "Get some kindling," he said in his constrained tone, and he grinned wide. At that point, Ben arose out of the forest. "Ben!" Justine cried. "Jesus," Ben said as Justine crushed him. "Did you folks hear that feline thing? We think it was an elk," Imprint said. "Where could you have been? For what reason did you take such a long time?" Justine inquired. I surmise I meandered excessively far off, and I neglected to focus on the pit fire. Took me a piece to view as my way back. Briefly I assumed I must freeze almost to death out there alone this evening. The help washed over my body like a wave, colliding with my muscles. I felt everyone unwind. Basically, Ben was protected. I searched for the strange man, yet he was no more. He somehow lurked away while I was diverted. He was great at going undetected when he needed to. My considerations went to leaving. Despite the fact that Ben was safe, that person was still in difficulty. I began back towards the gathering and got to the center of their discussion. "I don't know. Definitely. Who was that person?" Ben said. "I thought he was with you all," Sarah said. "Better believe it isn't he, your companion," Mark added. "I thought he rolled over with you three." "No," Ben said. "I don't have the foggiest idea what his identity is." The frenzy spread over everybody's countenances. They were at long lost inclination. What I was feeling, the acknowledgement had set in. "We want to leave," I said, "before he returns." "Certainly," Justine said. "We need to leave now. That person was an oddity." "Right. Porter, definitely," I said. I made sense of how I saw he was the oddball when we were lounging around the fire. I made sense of the odd way of behaving, and they generally concurred the person was abnormal and potentially hazardous. Not even one of us could pinpoint precisely when he had joined the gathering. He had sneaked in inconspicuously and unaccounted for. It was uncanny. We stuffed our tents in record time. We traveled 15 minutes to our vehicles through dim woods, electric lamps close by. We heard the shriek of the elk once more. Assuming it was an elk, which I feel a little uncertain at this point, and we took some solace from the reality it sounded farther away. All things considered, we got our speed for the last stretch of the walk. I felt like I could at last loosen up in the driver's seat and lock the entryways of my SUV. Justine and Ben sat toward the back, while Imprint and Sarah followed behind in Imprint's thrashed portage laser. We were going away from the forest and were wanting to shack up in an inn for the evening prior to heading home in the first part of the day. I thought we were without a care in the world. We wound our strategy for getting around the dim streets that wound through woods. I let a grin open up my face when we at long last arrived at the left street. It was a bolt-straight stretch of blacktop that split through the last couple of miles of forest. I pushed on the gas pedal. I was unable to stand by to get the damnation out of there, and I think Imprint was feeling the same way, since he sat close on my back guard. I thought, basically, we'll have an odd story to tell after so much. I didn't think it was going to transform into a harrowing tale. The trees and the ran lines out and about obscured past us. My headlights connected for the apparently perpetual street, and my speedometer needle its direction towards 100 mph of horse. I don't have the foggiest idea why in the world would I go that quick, and I wish Imprint didn't take cues from me. It was an error. The weird man showed up from behind a tree. He strolled into the center of my path. I pummeled the brakes. It was past the point of no return. The following grouping of occasions happened so quickly, it plays like a slideshow to me. The tires shrieked, and there was a smell of consuming elastic. The abnormal man collapsed over my hood and got sent flying not too far off. He skated across the asphalt on his back, moving with such speed that maybe he was coasting on ice. More tire shrieking. Mark went by on the contrary path, fishtailing. He battled it, and briefly, I thought he had it saved. Be that as it may, the vehicle snared right into the trees. The nauseating sound of crunching metal resounded in the air. Imprint's vehicle rammed into a tree, driver side first, sending sections of glass and metal flying. The vehicle limited off one tree and into another. The front traveler side affected this time. The front light detonated, and the traveler side hull collapsed, sending a wheel jumping into the forest. The folded stack of a vehicle came to a rest. Justine was the principal out the entryway, shouting out Sarah's name. Ben pursued her, and I trailed behind him. Everything felt strange as shock flowed through my body. Maybe I was watching through a screen. I drifted over the blacktop as Justine and Ben ran towards the steaming destruction. The accident scene was faintly lit by my SUV's one excess front lamp. There are two shouts I will always remember. They engraved themselves on my mind, and I'll hear their reverberations around evening time for eternity. In the event that I end up getting Alzheimer's further down the road, I know the last thing to go will be these shouts. The first I heard when I was 13. It came from my mom. It overflowed the house, sprinkling off the walls. I ran out of my space to see her folded at the front entryway, with two cops holding on. They had advised her that her oldest child, my sibling, had passed on. The second came from Justice, when she saw what was sitting tight for us in that Portage Laser. Mark was unrecognizable. He was a broken wreck of bone, skin, and blood, merged and entwined with the folded steel. Sarah was squinting gradually. Her breathing worked. Her one arm broken in an excessive number of spots to count. Her legs squashed at knees from the front of the vehicle, which folded once more into her leg space. Her legs would have been level in the event that I could see them. Justine dismissed and tumbled to her knees, face covered in her grasp, shoulders hurling. Ben attempted to comfort her. However, he needed to dismiss and throw up off the roadside. I took out my telephone and battled to dial 911. With my fingers shaking, I continued to press some unacceptable numbers. My voice was little and far off as I made sense of what has been going on with the administrator. She advised me to remain available, yet as I peered not too far off, I dropped my telephone. The bizarre man was remaining there. His smile came from one ear to another, getting defensive. His shoulders shrugged all over as though he was snickering. The fucker was snickering. As a matter of fact, in the event that I were not in shock, I would have pursued him at that moment. I would have torn his heart. In the event that he has one right from its chest. However, nothing remained at that point but to gaze, mouth agape, battling to keep the tears behind my eyes. The abnormal man began for the forest. I watched him go, and I watched him change. I saw it. I realized I did. This was no deception, no stunt of the brain. This was genuine. I saw him shapeshift. I saw its actual structure. We were not managing something human that evening. After endless long periods of exploration, I saw what others have called the goat man. Its horns stood out unevenly from its head. Its smiling nose uncovered lines of sharp teeth. Furthermore, strolling upstanding, similar to a man with an off-kilter stride, it disappeared into the covered woods. It has been 8 months since that evening. I've just seen my companions a modest bunch of times from that point forward. Our connections have broken and are left in ruin. All we are presently to one another is an obvious indication of that evening. Mark is dead. Sarah made do. However, as a triple tragically handicapped person, Justine and Ben separated. Furthermore, I'm right here, tough with a scraggly facial hair growth and whole hair subsequent to going through each restless evening exploring the monster I saw that evening, the Goatman. I'm returning to those woods, with God as my witness. I'm returning. I'm coming for the Goatman. Furthermore, I'm holding off on bringing until one of us is to an abrupt halt.